Hello and welcome to the first episode of Equally Unequal. I have some amazing guests today. With Sean Nix, multi-Emmy winning producer, creator, executive producer. She's worked with everybody from Oprah Winfrey through to Howie Mandel, Jada Pinkett Smith, Gloria Estefan. She's currently writing her own scripted TV series, and I'm thrilled to have her here. I'm happy to welcome Bern Izari, another very good friend of mine. She's a digital innovator and design leader. She has led cross-disciplinary teams, it's a mouthful, over 20 years, with deep roots in technology and marketing. She's developed award-winning experiences, products, and campaigns across multiple categories, including media and entertainment, finance, and high tech. She's a regular speaker at conferences. She sits on multiple boards. I'm not worthy, clearly. And she's also developing her own scripted TV series. There's also Al Berry, been a mate of mine for 40 years. I tortured him. Al's an amazing bass player. He's worked with everybody from Nile Rodgers, Kelly Clarkson, Avril Lavigne. He's toured with multiple acts. He's a teacher, mentor, father of 2 children that now have their own record deals, amazingly gifted. He's a songwriter and just an all-round really good bloke, very creative. My fourth guest is Sabir Shapiro, another good mate of mine. Sabir is a writer. He does artist management, working on his own TV series right now. He works for Gang Management, whose roster consists of one of the most culturally influential artists of the 21st century, Chief Keef. Other notable artists are Too Rare, Little Ganar, GLO Gang, and Sway Votain. He's also worked with Coco Jones, written songs for her, and Bella Thorne and Juicy. He's a producer, songwriter, all-round good bloke, and I'm very happy that he's here. AI influenced the creative landscape, and has it brought about changes that you feel are good or not?
I think AI is scary for sure. I think it's scary for a lot of the people who are afraid, like, what's going to happen to my job. And I think I'm probably a little bit older than a lot of everybody on this call, and I find that I'm constantly reminding people who are my peers, like, get on board, because you're not going to stop the train. So start to learn everything you can and start doing everything you can, which I said that about everything, like, that changes like what our industry means. But I think I right away started at the time that I kind of started learning about AI a little bit, and I'm not great in it, and I'm testing the waters for sure. But I immediately said to the team of people who was working with me, is like, let's figure out how to use the basic skills for editing social videos. Like, we were pumping out like 30 social videos a week, and really spending a huge volume of time on something that almost doesn't matter in some regard, right? It's content sometimes for content's sake in social, when you're doing it for a website or an app, because you're constantly cranking out so much. And so it's like, let's figure out how to edit things faster. Let's figure out how to use this, not to do the work for us, but to make us faster in how we do work, because it's here. And so we need to get on board with it. One of the ways that I know that a lot of people that I work with or know, really producers and stuff, I think it's making pitches really interesting and really great, because you can use something like Mid-Journey and create these avatars, and it takes like the most basic thing and glosses, puts lipstick on it without you spending a huge volume of time or resources or money. And I think it's not going anywhere, so figure it out a little bit. I used it. I'm from a very small town. I was invited to give a graduation speech, and we're talking a tiny town, 1,200 people. And I was like, well, let's see how I can use ChatGPT to help me find quick quotes, quick facts, quick things. And it elevated something that I didn't have a huge amount of time to spend writing, and helped me get to things really fast in a way that I didn't feel like it was cheating. I felt like I was, cutting through some of the maybe overthinking process for myself.
I agree with you. For the next film that I'm doing, I'm co-writing the title track, and which is a metal track, heavy metal, and I'm also co-writing the K-pop song, lyrically at least. And I decided that I would try Chat GTP. Now, while I didn't use any of the lyrics as blocks of lyrics, what I found was that it was really interesting to put in a phrase and then have Chat GTP constantly spitting out alternatives. And in fact, I used a small phrase from the multiple that they had generated. Most were not relevant. And that slotted into the song I was doing and allowed me to rethink that particular verse from a different angle.
So I think is a really good word for it too, Max, because I know I've used that in sorry to interrupt you, but
I
was shooting a sizzle the other day and just wanted to think about a different turn of phrases. I just it's like a cheat tool in a lot of ways that makes you
I disagree.
Out with a lot of ideas.
I don't view it as a cheat tool. I view it as an essential part now of the creative landscape, because you're right. You can't escape it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's done and dusted. And it boils down to this: either adapt or die.
Fair enough.
Bern, what's been your experience?
I've seen a couple of things, and I come out of design and technology, so this is, we are the people quite often who have created or let the genie escape. Where I've seen it is in twofold. Again, the low value work, the graphic production. What can I reduce? What can I streamline? What can I optimize? And so I've seen it in cases where we are figuring out how we can move data faster, how we can make an application move more quickly, and the things that would have been outsourced to agencies or to, lower level data entry is eliminated. And so, from an executive point of view, I'm doing exactly what we should be doing. I think I've also seen, because we are the people who create this kind of stuff, I've seen what happens when we don't do our due diligence. So there are conversations we're having about for Chat GPT, for example. One of the key things we ask is, okay, based on, because there's a fee when you use all of the prompts as a corporation, right? Like, I'm a corporation. I want to put this environment in place and I want to train it on my data, my images. So I don't have to worry about the junk that's in the internet, because we know that's been trained on some things that aren't really good. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to train it on my data. But to do that, I have to make economic choices. Like, which one am I going to use? Which engine has the right safety, the right controls, and which engine has the right cost? And sometimes people choose cost over quality. And so what I get worried about when we're designing systems, are we making the right choices that we don't, pick the low cost solution at the risk of introducing bad things into the new thing we're creating, because then we carry the errors forward. And, my last point on this is that I get worried when people, when they brand, I make brands too, when they brand things as hallucinations, I'm like, yo, that's a lie. That's an error. That's wrong. So can we have a quality conversation?
Yeah.
It's not cute to kind of call it a hallucination. That's baloney. They're making up wrong things. So that's where I get nervous, because I think economics often trump quality.
Ooh. Yeah, well, you're talking about the entertainment industry at large, where economics has definitely changed and constantly manipulates the landscape of what filmmakers can do budget-wise and what they can't do, or what you're going to get to stream your series or create your series or your low-budget indie movie. The thing I love about Mid-Journey and all the other engines, and it's early days yet. We
Right.
know, but it's completely leveled the playing field, if not absolutely yet. It's certainly going to in the next 2 to 3 years, where filmmakers that were previously excluded, now they're able to generate content, and content that's going to be watchable. A lot of the content that I've seen is not viewable, and it's kind of boring, and the resolution of it is not great, and the processing that's been involved. But I understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The thing that people are not getting is that Generation Z, Gen Z, and millennials, particularly Gen Z, are taking over the film, the entertainment industry en masse. It's the generation behind them. They're going to grow up watching this AI generated content, and that's what they're going to become used to. Right? It's right now we use it as an enhancement or a tool, and this is the whole basis of the SAG strike, is to stop the theft of images of what are now relevant celebrities, but that's changing, and generating content without paying the people involved. Well, it's going to go further than that, isn't it? Right? Because it's going to get to some point where they can just put a script into an AI generator or a prompt or series of prompts, and it's going to create a script, or at some point it's going to make a movie, and it's going to edit it, and it's all going to be done by AI. So what happens to those hundreds of thousands of ancillary crew, right, and cast? Because now you're distributing AI content via the internet, and who the hell can tell the difference? Right now,
Well,
but that's going to change. Yes, Al.
I don't know, man. I don't agree with the adapt or die, first of all. All right. Secondly, I think that there'll always be a space for creatives who choose to use old school methods. I definitely believe in adapting to whatever new current is happening. I mean, we saw this happen with music, in probably early 80s up through the mid 90s, when sequencers and computers and software programs, like Cubase, and we always thought about, oh man, this is going to kill bands. And then Simmons drums, oh, this is going to kill drummers. And as a bass player, oh, this is going to kill gigs for the bass player. And guess what? It really didn't. If I was a bass player, it was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to play a synth bass line, or I'm actually going to use this sequencer to help me to create something that I couldn't create before because I'm not a great keyboard player. So in a way, what we use digital technology for is integrating parts of our best ideas in places where we maybe lack the information or the skill set. And I do think it sort of levels the playing field, because a lot of people who were deemed non-musicians were actually able to do some amazing things through sequencing and using computers, and then using digital audio. And so I think the same thing with life and film. I think there's always going to be an aspect of design that comes through the guise of technology, right? But I also believe that some of our absolute best ideas, man, come from a connection of spirit, like on a soul level. It's like, wait a minute. If we can still be surprised by people, believe me, man, AI is not going to ever sort of completely replace that. And I think another thing is, I've seen sort of this AI generated sort of Jay-Z and Drake song. And everybody's like, oh, this is great, this is great. But quite honestly, you know what? No, it's because you packaged it a certain way to bring two popular artists that people love to do something that they've never done before. I guarantee you, if Jay-Z and Drake got in the studio, it would be 10 times better than the AI generated piece of music, because there's a play, there's a competition, there's a spirit, there's a soul. It's like we know that the vibrator didn't replace the this or the. I'm just saying, man. It's like I really believe that every level of technology comes. I'm just saying, right? So every level of technology takes us to a place where we have another possibility and maybe a greater possibility, right?
Yeah.
We never end there. The human spirit and human connection and nuance, two people gazing in each other's eyes, even actor across from actor, or competition, or hatred. All the things that really fuel the most intense parts of who we are come from a sort of a divine emotional space. I think when we start talking about AI, and I've seen the amazing things AI can do, and it is a bit scary, but at the same time, I really do believe, like you said, it's something that we sort of have to embrace, just like computers. You know, there's still some 80-year-old women out there who have never used a computer, but they're fine. They've gotten along without it, right? But maybe they had no desire to excel to the digital playing field, because guess what, man? It hasn't given a lot of people a better quality of life being on social media or being on computers or using AI.
Oh boy,
So,
that's a big doorway, and it's a good one to open. Yes, carry on.
yeah, but I do believe that I agree with what you said. There's a certain amount of adapting we have to do. It just hit me about 5 or 6 years ago when I was at JFK. And it was the first time for me. I'm 58 years old, right? So I'm not old, but I'm not as young as I used to be. I'll put it like this. I walked into the commissary to order food. There were only like 4 people. Everything else was iPads and digital menus. And I was like, whoa. And as efficient as it was, and I definitely understand why they did that, right? It lacked soul to me.
100%.
Because, like, dude, if I need some salt or some pepper or some hot sauce or whatever, like, I can't tap that into the thing. And I gotta literally wait for these 4 people that are probably servicing about another 8 people who don't get it, who are holding up the process. And then I'm uninspired. I'm literally doing this thing that actually is very streamlined. I understand how they probably cut their costs because they don't need 12 or 13 employees there, right? But honestly, my experience is not the same, man. My human experience is not the same. So I don't prefer that experience.
That's applicable to the generations that are here now. And I don't believe, nor do I advocate AI completely creating content. That's horrifying to me. I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker,
Yeah.
a composer. You know, it's not what I'm advocating at all.
Oh, I know that.
But what I am saying is that you can't hide from it. You can't run away. You have to find a way to utilize it and make it part of your creative process. Sabir, what are your thoughts? Thank you, Al.
First
Thank
of
you.
all, I think everyone has made excellent points. I think I'm in the same stream of consciousness as Al on this whole subject. I've seen things that it can do. You know, I'm a writer. I work in the music industry with artists and other writers. We collaborate all the time. And I mean, I even know of an artist right now who 2 years ago he told me about an AI beat machine that he was, putting a lot of money into. And, producers are worried about that because if I can, tell a beat to make me a hip hop track with a, South from the South slapping bass, like you can just pretty much tell the machine what you want it to make and it'll do it. That'll erase producers. Now every rapper or every singer can be their own producer as well. But I welcome it. I welcome the whole technology. I'm not going to act like I'm the first one that's going to jump in and use it, but I look at it like anything that can make life easier, I'm for it. The thing that I concern myself with more than anything, because, artificial intelligence to me is like intellectual slavery. I have this intellectual slavery that I don't have to work for any of this stuff that I'm going to find out. I just got to ask the questions and I'm going to get it all back. No work put in. So it's not,
Wow.
it's artificial. It's
Intellectual
artificial.
slavery. That's great.
Big word.
Great phrase.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just thinking of it because I'm looking at it like, we're skipping the whole process of learning.
Mhm.
We're skipping that,
Yep.
and we're getting that out of the way. And technology can be great, and I'll land right here. Technology can be great. So the reason I call it, where I was just thinking about intellectual slavery, is because what concerns me more than artificial intelligence is the consciousness or the mind that's using it. The technology in itself, and that's like the consciousness that says slavery is okay. I worry about the motherfucker who think like that
Right.
more than the people who participate in the system. Who thought this shit up first, where they said, this, let's do this.
Yeah.
So this thing can be a great thing, but we can't regulate consciousnness. And just like we can't regulate consciousness, artificial intelligence cannot bring consciousness to anything it creates. And that's where I say I line up with Al Berry on a lot of what he was saying. There's just a consciousness. And I also think it forces humanity, humankind, society. We got to start working on our consciousness now, because all the shit that we was paying people to do, look this up, find these facts, do this. No, we got all of that shit on its data. Just type it in. So this is it makes those people nervous, and rightfully so. But I feel like if you're connected to the universal stream of consciousness, there's nothing that man can create that will, move that to the side. We'll be here.
I love that. I love that, Sabir. I'm going to add a little thing to that as well, please, if you don't mind. One of the things about, I love this, first of all, a village, right? A tribe, a crew of people. And Max, you know this because we've written together in the past, right? The synergy between people from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic existences, cultural existences, everybody brings something to the table. And I think that collective consciousness creates a magic beyond what we're doing together, right? So like Sabir said, right? If I can say, hey, create this hip hop dirty South beat with a little West Side, Dre flavor and a thing can give me that. If I'm a young person who really doesn't even know much about the culture or the history of that music, I've done myself a disservice. I know very little about music history, and in film, I know very little about the actor, the personality actor, his journey. You're basically just kind of plugging in a bunch of information to create a piece of art, right? We lose so much, man, and I feel like it's almost the argument between the smartphone. Yeah, I love doing the step-by-step sort of math, getting to the equation, where now I can use a calculator, right? Listen, we have children in school now, man, who don't know how to write in cursive because they don't teach people to write in cursive anymore, right? You can't write a handwritten letter to your mom or grandma or your girlfriend because it was just so AI, can you create this handwritten? You miss the interaction between the very thing you're creating and the theoretical sort of journeying through information that could really be valuable to your life's journey. I know so many things because I'm around so many people and I'm listening to them and we're having an exchange. If that was the easier way to do everything, I think I'd be a lot less intelligent, a lot less curious. And I think if our curiosity is killed, that hand in hand with the human spirit is as powerful as our desire to thrive and persevere and live, man. We can't let it make us dumb or lazy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't believe that AI should or could ever replace the human creative spirit, because people were so complex and so unpredictable that when we're creating, and everybody here is a creative, so this emotion that when you're in the middle of writing something, whether it's music, or a screenplay, TV series, and you're writing a line of dialogue and you suddenly get this idea, oh, wait a second, right? Although the dialogue is, if you're in the groove, the dialogue will flow out of you, right? I don't believe that unpredictable spark of creativity can be replaced by digital AI. I don't believe that. Even when there are the claims that AI is sentient now and over the next decade is going to completely invade the internet and be way more sentient than we realize and completely beyond our control. Well, that's a different conversation. But that's what people are talking about. The big fear is that AI is going to start World War III, or it's going to start killing humans. I think that's all poppycock. That's bollocks. I think that's just hyperbole to take everybody's eye off the prize of what's really going on. And this is a rabbit hole I want to go down another panel, not this one, but I'm talking about societal control. And that is all relevant to the advent of AI and the internet and smartphones and everything that's going on in society. Sabir.
Well, yeah, it's been baby steps to get to this point, and I just look at my neighborhood and growing up, I was a 70s baby, and when I hit the 80s or 90s is when I did my thing outside, and just it's baby steps. I remember when I was a kid, we couldn't wait to get out of school because we playing with everybody up and down the block.
Yeah.
This is 1979 through 1986, 87. If you think back and gradually pay attention, Atari video games came out, then
Yep.
PlayStation came out, then ColecoVision, then whatever. And as that happened, I saw the kids at the playground. I saw, everyone's coming in the house now. So, and that was back in the 90s, early 90s. So if you just fast forward to now and we pull out these little fucking phones and we're all over the world. So now when we go out, everyone's doing, so it's been, when you look at the movie, The Matrix, how it's like they're just plugging everyone in, you can see that. And that's why I always go back to, I believe in the consciousness of humanity. So that's why I always go back to the consciousness. What we have to realize is there's a consciousness that goes into this. Are we paying attention to that? Because that's what's going to keep us on point.
I see it with my kid, and I see these conversations that he's having, and with his own peers, where he's like, yeah, no, we're not going to use that to look up what an elephant is. A, we're not supposed to, and I don't want to get in trouble. And B, we're missing out something. And I think there is, and he's like, Mom, I don't understand. It's just lazy. It's not that hard to look up what a fucking elephant is. Oh, sorry, you'll have to bleep that.
It's okay. I like the word fuck.
Right. And I think the thing that I there's a level I have to have of trust, right? Because I'm a trained designer, I write or what have you. One of the things that comes up for me that I get irritated with is when somebody shows me something, or I have a young designer and they don't understand that this comes from Basquiat, or they don't understand that this comes from this, or they don't understand how to do I know how to do photography in a lab. I use Photoshop now. I have not been in a lab since college, but I understand the principles because I did the work at least once or twice to understand the power of my tool. And so I think, as somebody who's part of the older generation training folks up, it's about, look, I want you to use the tools, but I want you to understand where they came from, because it's going to make you a better artist. So if you don't read, how are you going to be a great writer? If you don't watch, how are you going to understand cinema? If you don't understand where you came from and you don't understand attribution, I think it suffers. And I want people, like, when I see something and like, it's really cool, I'm like, where did that come from? Then technology lets me go, oh, it came from here, and I follow this link, and my curiosity takes me back. So all this to wrap up to say is, I want education systems that reinforce the spirit of learning and going back and forth, because it makes you better. Like when you write, you get stronger because you've done it. And you're like, when I switch the words around, this has a different flair. But I also think, we have to have a conversation about attribution, because if you put all this stuff in the machine and I can't follow the links to where that is, I can't get back to source. Now it's muddied and I don't have a way to learn. So I think there's responsibility that we have. And let's be frank, education doesn't land the same way for everybody. And that's the problem that we're not going to solve, and AI didn't create. That has been inherent in the systems, you know, ad infinitum. We've had that problem.
Yeah, but that's all deliberate, you know, the dumbing down of society and the de-education. Our whole educational system is in disarray, and multiple teachers are leaving because they can't take the madness anymore. Michonne, you wanted to say something.
I think one of the things, and it sounds like it's coming kind of consistently through all of us. One of the things I really appreciate about when I was growing up and I was starting this business and going on and my background's mostly TV and videos, right? And building that sort of thing. And so I remember like when we were linear editing and Avid was coming in and it was like, oh my God, this is going to save us. Look, I don't have to know my story before going in. I can actually rearrange it 1,000 different ways and save so much time. But one of the things I appreciate, and I didn't even live in linear editing that long, but when I was learning, it was like, how do you find your start and how do you find your ending? Or how do you find those references in between? How do you tell a story? And you really had to, you never sat in front of your editor and didn't know how to tell your story because you would just screw up time. So much time and money would be wasted, where Avid made things so fast. And then, you know, obviously there's 9,000 other sort of sources. I just remember that switch and thinking these younger people aren't learning the how to tell that story. If you didn't have that guy sitting next to you, you know, I used to always say, he's a brain, he's not a button pusher. But you actually should have your brain on to like, how do you want to start this before you ever walk into that edit bay? And I think one of the things that I really hope is that kid who's asking for the Dre's beats know what Dre is to the story. Like that's not just a phrase, that is a human, that is a person who created an entire movement. And I worry a lot about some of the younger people who I know that I'm trying to mentor and coach and teach, not knowing the fundamentals of building a story in my space or a story in like just using the technology, but coming back to the roots of like why any of us got into this in the first place. And when I think about encouraging people to use it, I think I encourage people who did, you know, graduate from high school in the 80s or in the 90s and started their business and grew up, and now they're letting themselves get passed by because this other group of kids who are coming in, they're smart and they're brilliant and they can sit down in a machine and make any machine do anything they want. And they, you know, how many times has my niece grabbed my phone and said, just do it this way. But they don't have the first idea on how to build that thing. I don't even care if it's like the family slideshow. I'm like, where's your story in the slideshow? There's no story. You've built me a slideshow of pictures that you let Apple tell you what was cool. Where's that story? You know, and it's like, I don't know, there's all this story and heart and soul that we've all put into learning this craft that is really important to guide other people to. It's like finding the elephant or any, you know, any of these sort of things. And I hope that when AI cranks out a film and we're supposed to go and watch it, because I'm sure that'll happen, but the holes that you're going to see, unless they connect it back to the artists and they're licensing, they're going to end up having to pay checks to those artists if they've learned it from there, then, you know, you're missing some soul to the stories. And that's a big thing to me, is like, you can't teach somebody to do that background that we had, but our backgrounds save who we are as creative people.
Sabir.
I think you must have been feeling me, Max. I think we have to be careful as, once again, society, as people. We have a tendency to let our ego and our nostalgia for history get in the way. Sometimes we hold on to it too much. And me personally, I like new shit. I want what's cutting edge. I want what's new. And I only thought of this when I was just listening to Marshawn talk. And I was thinking, you know, someone said something about earlier how kids don't know how to write cursive. I got a 13-year-old daughter. These kids don't know how to write cursive. And how we could look at that like that's horrible. Like, how don't we know that? Why don't they know how to do that? And we're losing the art of writing and so on and so forth. But that make me think of, well, how do the motherfuckers who came up with calligraphy look at us? We don't know how to write calligraphy, but
I
we're
knew
still
how to write
writing.
calligraphy. Sorry.
Well,
Yeah, so
see,
do I.
Burn, you're an anomaly, Burn, all around.
No. And
Okay.
I share your concern about cursive, but
Yeah.
I think what it becomes, to your point, it's about somebody having a passion for it. Typography has a long history. It's a passion.
Exactly. And I think if you have that passion, like Marshawn was saying, even going back in film, and where's your storyline? And that's where we again come in as creatives, because I can sum this up. As creatives, whatever technology comes along, it's up to us to learn it, because we will keep that consciousness within the technology. We'll keep that connection within the tech. A lot of people can get out here and fake and front and bullshit and act like it. They've been doing it for years, acting like they're one thing. But when you're the genuine article, just like it went from typewriters to computers, motherfuckers stop using typewriters, start using computers. Still the ones who were those creators. And even, this is my last thing, even with artificial technology, we're used to it. Everyone, Google, that's artificial technology. We ain't got to know shit. Type in the question. So it's been here, you know, so I'm landing.
All
Yeah,
right.
I agree with you entirely. To Mashan's point that about knowing the history of the art form that you're utilizing, when I was teaching at Columbia College in the film school, I was trying to get students to understand the structure of film, to look at the history of the great films that had preceded them, and that these are great learning tools for you to see how film has evolved in terms of writing and acting and directing and editing, and what are the key plot points that have brought you to where you are now in your creative journey. This was in 2005. And I would hazard a guess that 40% of them, maybe more, didn't give a shit. The only thing they wanted to do was make short clips, put it on YouTube, or which was at the time the big one, right? And make money and be famous. That was their goal. It wasn't to create great short films or wonderful features, or, you know, as creatives, we are always the window to society, right? That's whether you're writing a rap song, or you're doing a reality show, or whatever, you know, you're making a movie or a TV series, whatever it is, that we're writers, so we're always watching what's going on, and then we filter that down, and it comes out of us, and we manipulate it into what we believe is a viable story. They didn't care. That was 2005. How far down that rabbit hole has it gone? Well, take a look at TikTok. I mean, you know, or right now, you can go to YouTube and watch multiple AI generated short clips. And there are creatives now working on entire features using AI. I just hope and pray that they're still paying attention to story structure and to what makes a good story. Look at great films, look at crappy films, right? And see what is the part of that that made that film so great.
And what I suggest to you and Marshawn is, don't worry about it, guys, because people like us are going to learn AI, and we're going to bring that story structure and everything that's supposed to be there. So have no fear.
I think quality always rises to the top to a certain level. Like, look at the book arts, right? And there was a time when making books had to be by hand, and now it's an entirely different thing. But then you have these pockets of people who fall in love with craft, and they go and they do it deep, and they invent something new, and they take the new and they remix it and they mash it up. And you see that with music, you see that with film, you see that like one of the things I love is when a great film has impact and you see people recreate it through their lens. So like one example is like Spider-Verse, and a whole bunch of creators made like Puppet Verse and this verse and that verse and da 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 da. And you see all this remixing and you're just like, I just love that this thing that's all about illustration and incredible styles was mixed with cinema that then creators riffed on. Like that's the only reason I have some hope, because I'm like, there's always going to be people who see something and that kernel of creativity makes them go crazy. And they're like, but you know what I'm going to do with it? This is how I see it. So if I don't believe in that, then, then I should have had a baby, but it's too late. He's 13 now. So I gotta have hope. Right?
Rebels will always exist as well.
Exactly.
I believe that.
And you
I
meet
believe
them,
that.
right?
I see kids now. I was in Seattle a few months back, and it was really cool because I'm walking around in Seattle. I think is probably more diverse than LA right at this point in the sense of culture and art. In the 90s, I think it was more going on. But the Rebels, when I say that, it's like I saw people walking around with books. There were more places that sold vinyl. People were buying vinyl, right? So there's pockets of all these things that are always going to be curious to the youth as well, because somebody's uncle, like my uncle was listening to Parliament Funkadelic, and I was curious when I was like 10 years old, what is he digging about this? And it's all these sort of streams of consciousness that come our way as byproducts of our family or the people we choose to be our family or our crew. And that's why I don't get worried about it. I do agree with Sabir in a sense of like, only thing that rubs me slightly the wrong way deep down inside is we know that there are some evil people who have very bad intentions. And how far are they able to go with a limitless technology into some of the dark places they want to go? But that's a part of humankind, and it's always been a part of humankind from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a big bomb you just dropped. Yeah, I don't know, and I have no idea. It's just something to definitely contemplate. But let me show you an AI generated trailer for a movie.
Interesting.
I thought it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
AI generated. It's a lot to think about when you watch a clip like that. And
of course it is. Come on, man.
There are multiple clips like that on YouTube, and I'm sure other platforms. People are using Midjourney and whatever else that they're using to create these clips. It's quite eye-opening.
We're going to see so much more, man. And I think for us, we've already seen God, man. I mean, any kid that grew up in the 70s, in the 80s at this point has seen tremendous shift in the sense of what technology has done. I mean, we talk about when I first started touring, man, I literally was getting a roll of quarters every time I went out on the road. And then I had a pager and people thought I was a drug dealer, but I was like, nah, this is just so I can be in touch with my work when I get back home, And so we've gone from literally quarters to phone booths, to pagers, to phones that can now basically give us, you can damn near do anything on a phone now.
Change the world.
And as you were actually troubleshooting through the process and got help, I was thinking, hey, Chat GPT, show Max how to do this thing real quick, right? You know what I mean, right? So, all right, so think about that. Seriously, think about the digital assistant, because it's going to happen real soon. The digital assistant is going to happen real soon. And just like that,
they're in a lot of ways.
They're there already.
Right?
They're there.
I was in Frankfurt Airport a couple weeks ago, coming back from Europe. And this was the trip, because I'd seen like little versions of this before, but not like this. So ordered food, and when the food was ready, this robotic thing looks like R2-D2 with trays on it comes out.
I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. With food to the
Robot
table,
waiter.
everything that was on the order, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, because when we sat down, it was a big area and there were only 2 waiters. I was like, I wonder how they got a lot of work to try to cover this whole section, right? But when the thing came out, I was like, dude, like, whoa, like we've seen so many examples of it in films, from Back to the Future to Star Wars, whatever, in our past, to know that it's coming. And we're in it now. And I think just like when we saw the first Apple computer rollout, you know, and where we've gone to now, we're going to see so much more in the next decade. And I think one of the things I'm really grateful for now is that I am closer to 60 than 50, because I think in a way, some of us who are called millennial elders, if you want to call it that, I think anybody over 40,
Oh,
I think as
millennial
a
elders?
creative, I think that's what it's called. Like if I'm anybody, I think at this point is over like 45 years of age, you're considered an elder in this generation.
Yeah.
Like when we were young, it was like if you were grandpa's age, you were an elder. But
Right.
quite honestly, it's a different thing, because I feel like the real elders are sort of disposed of and discredited and insignificant to the masses. I don't feel that way personally.
Right.
But I do say that we do, and I want to use this word loosely, have a bit of a responsibility, you know, to usher information. You know, I teach lessons as a basis. And sure, Max, I get people like you just said, they don't really care about proper technique or music history or other great bass players, or they want to learn a song. 8 times out of 10, somebody's like, I want to learn this Green Day song. Okay, cool. I'll teach you this Green Day song. But why do you want to learn this song? Why do you like this song? Why do you want to start here? Okay, now at some point I'm going to say, listen, it's going to benefit you to at least learn how to play it technically correct, because what's going to happen is you're going to want to play another song, and it's going to make it easier down the road. I got to constantly spoon feed them little tidbits of information that they may not want or be interested in, but I know is going to create an overall successful journey for them if they want to do this long run or short run. So I do think in a way, we are able to educate and maybe give a little bit of sort of encouragement, in the sense of, okay, I'll give you what you want, absolutely, but let me throw a couple of things in there that root in maybe an understanding of what came before you, because it has great value, you know, and some of the technical aspects that might carry you a long way, because that's where I think humans and machines work best. You know, obviously we have these things that can pick up really big rocks and move from here to there, and we're able to, you know, crack foundations and build homes. I mean, I've always been a fan of the things that we've been able to do with the assistance of machines. But it wouldn't happen for the most part with other people. Now we're getting to an age where machines can do things without people, right? Okay, it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean we're not included in that process. I remember sampling. When sampling became a really big issue in the 80s, guys were just grabbing loops and grabbing samples. And then because they had no value, until the record companies started going, okay, right, we're losing a lot of money because people are actually stealing snippets of songs that we have publishing rights on. The artists are not getting paid for them, right? This thing that you showed me was actually really impressive, Max. The only thing that scares me about that is is there any sort of, if they put that out in the theater, right? And this is a big, you know, blockbuster. Does anybody get paid or rewarded for the creative parts of what?
Well, I Googled the guy real quick and I LinkedIn him. So I figured out a few things about it. Saphira's laughing. He's at VW. And he comes out of brand and agency. So I have a feeling that the teams that worked on that are very well trying to push the boundaries with a commercial intent. And that at the end of the day, a lot of that source material, he's had access to people to make that thing happen who have history and resource. So I think, you know, the whole intent is to get the attention and make the most incredible thing. But that's not something that would not have commercial viability. It's just real clear based on his background and LinkedIn. But I think there are people like me who run around when they see stuff like that and go, how did you do it? Did you get the people? Da 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 da. Who are always going to get underneath it and go, okay, great. Here's the underbelly. Now, whether or not people listen to it and will heed the payment attribution and thing is a different circumstance. But,
Yeah. I'm just always interested.
I don't think people give a shit, because you know, if you look at streaming, right, at the streaming platforms for songwriters are getting screwed royally.
Dude. Oh, it's
I
so
mean, I don't know
horrible.
about this. What's happening to the
Oh,
songwriters?
it's horrible. We've been trying to fix this for the last 20 years because royalties, dude. My last royalty check was gas money. I was like, whoa, a lot of this generation of people don't even know about royalties.
Nope.
Buyouts have
Know about
become,
residuals and royalties. Like, so are you saying they're sampling your songs and therefore you have to chase them to find the money?
wait a minute.
No.
Royalties right now.
Talk about streams, Al. Talk about how streams.
Yummy.
You can have a
I've been living
million
in design
streams.
and type.
Listen, you can have 1 million streams on Spotify. Every platform is different. You can have 1 million streams on, I'll just say use Spotify as an example.
Yeah.
You can have 1 million streams on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
You may not get a check for $11.
Right? Think about that. That's just.
And he is
for
not
me,
lying.
That's a platinum record. By
Yeah,
all means, if we had a physical, see, this is the thing, man, we gotta be careful about. Since they stopped making CDs and cassettes, and there's maybe prints of albums now, but that's very niche. And a lot of people use that to get boxes to use for merch, because it's the only way you're gonna make money when you tour now, right? It's by merch, right?
Right.
So if I paid $1, right, for a million songs to somebody, they get $1 million, right? If their publishing company gets a cut, okay, maybe they get $700,000, right? Then their manager gets a cut 20%. Still, they're not going to get less than 40% of the things they created if they own it fully, right?
Right.
Nowadays, you can literally, somebody can stream your 10 million streams of your song, and you're not a millionaire. 10
I'm looking
million
at my Stem
streams,
account right now.
10 million streams of your song will not make you a millionaire.
Yes.
Hit us up with that info, Sabir.
I'm looking at my Stem account because it just said, like he said, some check. I mean, it's not even until you hit at least 100 million streams.
That's crazy.
That you should even consider looking at the check. Like, I go through my Stem checks, and I'm like, oh, okay. I just look at it like this is a little account. Like, and the year may pass, and it may be $500-600 in the account after the year, but your song is at 20 million streams, 30 million streams, you know. And if I believe they said you have to get 100 million streams to make like $4,000.
So check this out. I want to say this real quick. When we used to have a physical thing, it had value.
Yep.
Once people got rid of the physical thing, it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
Music got hit
Now,
first.
and then once people get used
first,
to, and then once the culture of people get used to getting something for free, they're not going to go back. They're not going to pay for something that they can get free. So there's no value in it.
But that's legalized piracy, isn't it? Right, because they're screwing the creatives.
Well, and guess what? There are a lot of creatives in film. They're doing the same thing, Max. You know,
of course, right? But you know, this then becomes a political issue, right? For 20 years, we've been trying to get the streamers to pay a fair share, and they're not going to. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars, and the creatives, as we always have been throughout the history of music and film, getting royally fucked with no kissing and no reach around. It's, you know, it's, oh man, it's so frustrating, right? But here's the rub, right? Every successive government could have legislated and done something to change it, but they haven't. No,
because you know what?
Why?
The corporations are running the governments. We know that.
Yeah, of
Listen,
course.
Sony, who actually created all of the technology to rip music, right? From dubbing CDs to, we know this back in the day, Tascam, the 4-track was really a good thing. Once we got to being able to duplicate discs via computers and CDs, they knew that was going to change the landscape. But nobody wanted to think about the revenue, because they were like, at the end of the day, we don't really want the creatives to feel so significant they can continue to make deals. We love the platform we have. We're making money hand over fist constantly. Hollywood, the same thing. All the executives of all these platforms that create the streaming services are all, millions and millions of dollars, man. Their bonuses are more than most of what pop artists make in their first 10 years. So there used to be a time where I really do think that there was a bit of a trickle down. That's why it's a strike going on right now.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate because they're banking on people just giving up, throwing in a towel, and just giving in, which I hope doesn't happen.
Well, apparently SAG and the Writers Guild are close to an agreement. I read yesterday.
Yeah, man. Anyway, this is the part I think a lot of us, everybody here, I'm sure, is here because we're passionate about what we do. And somebody's at the front door. I have no idea who it is, but I might have to jump off soon. I think everybody's coming back. But everybody here is passionate about what we do. We're going to do it whether we get paid or not, to a certain degree.
Sure.
The other part about it that's super frustrating is that the days of us being able to have the kind of living that we thought we would have from doing what we do may be soon gone. And that is the part that hurts my heart the most, because I know there's a whole generation of creatives behind us who both my kids have record deals and are artists, but only thing that I fear for them is that the platform that we were able to survive in, at least for a good part of our lives, they may not have that chance. And that hurts.
I suggest not fearing that, Al. I'm always optimistic, and I'm going to tell you why. Because just like you feel they may miss that, there's so many more new opportunities that have opened up on the front end in which they can maximize, make that much, if not more money, and still do their art without compromising their art. And I think of that because one of the areas I also work in is NIL deals, name, image, and likeness. And now you have, with the NIL deals, you have the NCAA that's been taken out of sports, whether it's high school, junior high, college. And these kids, like Angel Reese from LSU, she didn't go to the WNBA this year because she said, I'll make more money staying in college doing NIL deals, endorsements, and things like that. So I believe, once again, as long as your kids are talented, as long as they know who Stanley Clark is if they play in the base, long as they know, long as they got that history, because see, that history is what goes nowhere. Your mama, your grandmama, your uncles, all of them give you that. That's what comes with cultures. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So long as they got that tie back to history, the technology isn't going to affect that consciousness, once again, that they're going to bring to that art. And like I said, on the NIL deals, like these little kids, like imagine what kind of trouble we'd be in if you grew up in the 80s like we did. Imagine what kind of trouble we'd be in if we had fucking Facebook and Instagram and we could just show what we're doing right here, right now. We'd all be locked. I know me and half of my friends be
I am
locked
so
up right
grateful.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that long as we always look at it's the whole concept of when one door closes, another one opens. We just got to find that door. Then we'll be okay.
Well, thank you for that, because as optimistic as I am, I believe that to be true. I'm always compassionately understanding to people who maybe don't have the family support, who don't have the resources, and don't have someone that they can have believe in them, because that's how I started out. I grew up as a kid in Baltimore, not coming from much except for a dream and no way to really get there. And then when you look at kids like me, who were very, very, very passionate, and had sort of leadership or community, and I know they'll find their way, and I know there'll always be people there for those people who seek it out. I just feel like, in a way, I guess the earth is doing, and technology and the universe is doing what it's always done. It's sort of like sifting out a lot of, you got to really love this stuff now. That's what I'm saying. You got to really love this stuff now, because the cream always rises to the top. Even if everybody's competing on an AI level and throwing stuff out there, the best of it is still going to have to survive.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to get going because
Yeah, I think this is probably a good place for us to end this particular episode, and we'll pick it up on the second episode. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating. A lot of great insight, a lot of great comments, and I'll see you guys next time. If you enjoyed the show, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Take care.